Now for Julie's presentation.
Hello. I'm not really going to be standing up here because, first of all, I don't want to block your view, and second of all, I need to be controlling that because I have a lot more slides that I'm going to show you, and I'll explain why in a minute. But my topic is education in Nazi Germany and the USSR. You guys know what the USSR is, hopefully, so, okay. I will not be using all the slides here because, like Ben said, there are a lot. There are close to 50. We're not going to get through all of them, but this is going to be shared with you so that later you can look through this and prepare yourselves for the quiz because this has all the information. I'm just going to be giving you guys basic summaries. Right. Yeah. Let's focus on Germany first. Okay. Alright, Germany summary. In 1937, the Jews became the main enemy of Germany. Side note, the Jews are a race. They're not considered a religion in Nazi Germany. Keep that in mind, it comes up. In an attempt to shift the Germans toward hatred, obviously against the Jews, the Nazis passed the Nuremberg Laws in 1935. We know that. The Nuremberg Laws basically separated Jews from society. They didn't really hurt them or promote physical violence or anything, but they did separate Jews. These laws spawned the great debate called the Jewish Question, where Germans questioned how to treat the Jews that live in their society. Because while the laws separated Jews, they didn't say, oh, you have to treat Jews a certain way. They just said Jews can't go here, Jews can't hold these positions of jobs and stuff like that. So yeah, the Jewish Question, that's important. Julius Streicher, who's a dude who wrote the pamphlet called The Jewish Question in Education. Actually, Julius Streicher wrote a lot of anti-Semitic works, and one of those works was something called The Jewish Question in Education. This guy believed that children are also wondering about the Jewish question, obviously because their parents are probably wondering about it, and so he says that the Jewish question, which is also related to the racial question, should be taught in schools. Like, teachers should actually get up in front of a class of students and be like, this is the Jewish question, Jews are this is how you treat them, this is why you should treat them that way. He says that teachers who do not teachers who do not teach the Jewish question are weak. He basically says that Jews are a race and that races should not mix. He says that science explains this because in nature, for example, sparrows, which are a type of bird, live with sparrows. Ants live with ants, wolves live with wolves, and all that other good stuff. He says the same divide should exist among people. Whites should live with whites, blacks should live with blacks, and Jews, which are considered a race, should live with Jews. He also says that likes mate with likes, and again, that happens in nature. He says that humans should exercise that divide as well. He goes as far as saying that mixed-race people, just like mixed-race animals, are inferior, weak, and burdens to society. That's so nice, isn't it? Julius claims that German girls are at a bigger risk for having mixed-race children because they will be the ones who will most likely sleep with Jews. So they need to get special education that teaches them that being the mother of a mixed-race child is also bad because, he literally says this, the poison of the Jew never leaves her body. Julius argues that Jews are also evildoers who will bring down the Nazi government, and they start by taking the political offices and jobs. He gives the example of termites. It was ants. Ants, they have a queen and they have a bunch of worker ants and defender ants who do all this wonderful stuff, right? And the queen is in the middle and, she has ant babies and all that other good stuff. And then there are the protector ants who protect the society. He says that termites one day went to the ants and the warrior ants did not kill the termites, so the termites began living with the ants, and then eventually the termites got friendly with the ants. They were all cool. The species were good, and then one day the termites decided to wreak havoc on the ant civilization and kill it. He says the Jews are the same. He says that eventually the Jews begin by going into society and opening up shops and businesses and living with Germans. Then they take political offices. They take jobs in politics. And then eventually, he says, the Jews will take over Germany by becoming the leader and bringing the country down again. He says that, well, he blames hyperinflation, which happened post World War I, on the Jews. He also says that the Russian Revolution, both of them, were the Jews' fault. He doesn't say why, he just says it is. The reasons that nature, well, basically, the whole point of giving those reasons, both the nature reason and the Jews are evil reason, are to justify the Nuremberg laws, which, like I said, brought forth the Jewish question. So basically, the kids are asking about the Jewish question in class, but the Jewish question came from the Nuremberg laws. And Julius says that the Nuremberg laws are meant to separate Jews and that they are needed because Jews are evil. And separation is natural. And this is what you all should know by now. Any questions? No questions?
I have a
Yeah.
question. Did Julius Streicher play a part politically, as in was he involved in the government, or was he just an idealist in society?
He was not involved in the government. He was just a Nazi writer, an anti-Semitic writer.
Mm-hmm.
But he perpetrated government views, so his works were good, as far as the government went. Yes?
Was there anyone who was openly like teaching people that violence is the way, not just that Jews are evil and that they need to be gotten rid of, but that and that if you see a Jew, then hey, don't be afraid to use violence?
No, I don't think people were teaching kids to be violent towards Jews. They were just teaching them that Jews should be ignored and that the separation that exists between Germans and Jews, which comes from the Nuremberg laws, is totally natural and is actually needed.
Okay.
Yes.
So being like, is it the Germany being taught to be like a superior race in that case?
Yes.
Or like what specific things they have been taught to do? Is it going to?
Well, Germans are considered the superior race because in Germany, really the only people who live there are Germans and Jews. And Jews are, as you know, German, but for some reason the Nazi government says that they're not German, they're just Jew, it's a different race. So Germans are already considered to be the superior race. But these teachings really just teach kids about how to treat Jews outside. Like, for example, if a kid was walking down the street with their mom wasn't there, and the Nuremberg laws don't say you can't talk to Jews or you can't, they don't say how you should go about interacting with Jewish people. They just say what Jews can't do. So, for example, if a German kid was walking down the street and they didn't have their parents around them and they passed a Jew, or they went into a store and the Jew was behind the counter because for some reason that Jew still had a job working in a store, the Jewish question was meant to teach that kid how to interact with that Jew. Any other questions, or should we move on to the USSR? Cool.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Cool. How much time do we have?
10 minutes left.
Oh, great. Okay. This is a little shorter. The schools in the USSR were really, really bad, basically, in 1931. Stalin's first 5-year plan was started in 1928, and then fast forward 5 years, the first 5-year plan, there were multiple ones. The first one should have ended by 1932, but they just decided to end it by 1931. So by the end of Stalin's first 5-year plans, the schools were really, really bad. They really didn't teach kids much. The Central Committee, which was in charge of education in the Soviet Union, said that the schools did a really, really poor job of teaching a lot of the children a lot of the things that they needed to know so that they would be able to have futures in the country later on. The schools did a bad job of teaching because many of the teachers use their own methods, which is considered as a teaching style called the project method. And these methods, which were all individual, didn't work for those students. So the government decided to treat this problem by handing out stable textbooks, which are basically, they're just textbooks which write like down the curriculum of what the student needs to know, so they contain all that the kid needs to know. And they also have a lot of praises of the government. Like, for example, in a writing class, you know how like you practice to write words and stuff? The words that were used for practice based on these textbooks were words like communism, strong government, Stalin, phrases and words that basically praise the government. And these stable textbooks replaced all other methods, meaning they got rid of the project method because they were what the teachers had to use. The problem was, since politics now ran everything, including the education, because the stable textbooks had a lot of things on how great the government was, the teachers had problems getting truthful information across to the students. For example, one of the teachers who was in one of the documents said that she taught her students poetry that were from Stalin-approved poets, but she said that those poets were terrible writers. She couldn't teach them traditional Russian poets because they were not Stalin-approved. But she had to teach them the Stalin-approved poets, even though they weren't very good, because she figured, how would those students pass future exams? That and classes were monitored by government officials. So she really, couldn't get away with that. Yeah, okay. Also, the government decided that they needed to create a list called Rules for Pupils. This is a very detailed list containing over 20 rules that basically include everything from, how students should behave in a classroom, like listen to the teacher, come to class prepared, study hard, do your homework, all that good stuff, to rules that included keep your room clean, help your parents with your younger siblings, and get enough sleep at night. So this list contained things that the students should do both in and out of school. That'd basically be like AFS telling you, keep your room clean. That's part of your job as a student. And this is what you people should know. Any questions?
Do they see any kind of increase or decrease in the general success of the education, like in the core curricula, math and sciences? Did they?
The documents that I read only talked about what the government changed. They didn't talk about what happened, the results. But I did speak to my dad, who grew up in the Soviet Union. He did not grow up during Stalin's time. He grew up during Khrushchev's time. But Khrushchev, I think, followed Stalin, so a lot of the changes that Stalin had kept going were still in place when Khrushchev took office. And my dad says that the education system was actually incredibly good. You got a really, really good education out of it. There were a lot of tests, quizzes given out. You had a lot more subjects. For example, a geometry course wouldn't just be 1 year, but it'd be like from the time you got to like 5th grade all up until 10th grade, like every year you had a geometry course and you would just build on what you learned. So the education system definitely was very good by the time my dad was in school, and I think it was because of these changes. These changes were implied, people started learning by textbooks, and the government had a better control of what was being taught to students. So yeah, there was definitely good results from it. Any more questions?
All right, good. Let's go to the next one.
Well,
What do you
these are just some questions.
Sorry?
So the project was we had to compare and contrast the two societies. So these are just some questions for you guys to think about. That could hopefully help you answer the question of what was similar and what was different and why. How much time do I have? Like 5 minutes?
No, we have like 3.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, guys, get out a piece of paper or whatever, and please, I would like you to write like 2 really good potential thesis questions for this. Answering the question of what do you think are the differences or similarities within the two societies that are with the topic of education.
2 theses, do you think?
Yeah.